We've all heard the standard advice for high-stakes situations. You're supposed to fake it until you make it. You're told to stand in front of a mirror and do 5-minute power poses before a big interview, date, or stepping up to a podium. But those psychological band-aids have a fatal flaw. The precise moment you actually need them, the second the door opens and the pressure hits, they evaporate entirely. The reason they vanish is that trying to act confident doesn't actually build confidence. It's an outside-in strategy attempting to solve an inside problem. When you slap an artificial persona over your actual insecurities, the brain recognizes the contradiction. It actively generates anxiety. By relying on these temporary external hacks, you trap yourself in a highly vulnerable position. You aren't building a sense of self-assurance. You're just putting on a costume and waiting to be exposed as a fraud. Look at this flowchart, which maps out the exact sequence of that vulnerability. We can call this the doubt loop. It triggers when you compare yourself to someone else. That comparison creates an immediate sense of insecurity, which spirals into self-doubt. The final result is that you shrink back and hide. Now, look at the alternative structure next to it, the confidence loop. This mechanism runs in reverse. Instead of reacting to external comparisons, you start strictly internal. You learn to know yourself, which gives you the data to trust yourself, which finally allows you to accept yourself, flaws and all. Processing your identity through these 3 stages shifts the focus away from external validation. By moving from knowing yourself to accepting yourself, you construct a framework designed to process exposure, rather than a mask designed to hide it. Defeating imposter syndrome involves a structural shift. It means breaking the behavioral mechanics of the doubt loop and physically rewiring your response through the confidence loop. Fear and anxiety need a very specific environment to grow. They thrive in the dark gap between the person we pretend to be in public and the reality of who we are in private. Take a former health and wellness podcaster. He spent his days interviewing fitness experts and positioning himself as a paragon of clean living. But privately, he harbored a chewing tobacco habit he'd kept hidden since high school. That hypocrisy completely wrecked his baseline self-trust. He was terrified of being found out because his public image was entirely disconnected from his daily actions. Repairing that self-trust demands a strict behavioral intervention. You have to close the gap. The fastest way to do that is by making and ruthlessly keeping small, uncompromising commitments to oneself. This could be something grueling, like completing the 75 hard challenge without skipping a single day, or it could be quiet, like deciding you'll spend 2 unbroken hours writing every single morning, no matter what. Every time you follow through on a private commitment, you prove to your own brain that you are reliable. That accumulated proof forms a layer of psychological armor, giving you the internal stability required to handle external pressure. That stability protects you from the fear of judgment. Panic over what other people think isn't a personality flaw, it's a symptom. It means you lack an objective baseline of self-knowledge to fall back on. Imagine wearing a plain white shirt, and a stranger walks up and aggressively tells you it's the ugliest orange shirt they've ever seen. You wouldn't spiral into self-doubt.
You wouldn't suddenly wonder if your shirt was actually orange. You'd just assume the stranger was mistaken because you possess the objective fact that the shirt is white. This exact logic applies to your identity. If you haven't taken the time to define the factual white shirt of your own character, you leave a vacuum. External opinions and passing rumors will rush in and dictate who you are. To establish that baseline, look at this timeline structure, spanning from birth to today, marked out in decades. By filling in major events, times you traveled alone, started a business, or survived a challenge, you map the incontrovertible facts of your history. You create a solid, factual, objective foundation. Once your personal history and character are mapped as objective truth, a rumor or an insult simply bounces off. It contradicts the data. Even with that foundation, fear will still creep in. But fear isn't mystical. It is simply your brain acting as a projector, playing a vivid mental movie of an absolute worst-case scenario on repeat. The standard self-help industry tells you to fight this disaster loop with positive visualization. Just picture your success. But when your brain is actively mapping out a catastrophe, forcing yourself to imagine a sunny outcome feels completely delusional. It rarely works. The logical countermeasure is an analytical process known as fear setting, or negative visualization. Instead of running from the worst-case scenario, you lean directly into it. This grade breaks down the protocol. First, honestly define the absolute worst thing that could happen. Second, brainstorm preventative measures. Finally, map out an exact repair plan to clean up the damage if the worst actually comes to pass. Fear simply gets its power from ambiguity. By dragging your anxiety out of abstract shadows and forcing it into the shape of a logical contingency plan, it instantly ceases to be a paralyzing unknown. Consider how this works for an entrepreneur launching a new business. In this high-stakes scenario, the paralyzing fear was total financial collapse. So they ran the fear-setting protocol. They decided their worst-case repair plan, their plan B, would be to pack up whatever was left and move to Hawaii to teach. The moment that repair plan was formalized on paper, something shifted. Realizing that total business failure simply meant living and teaching in Hawaii completely removed the crushing weight of their primary goal. Suddenly, Plan A didn't carry life or death pressure anymore. Real confidence is not the delusional belief that nothing will ever go wrong, or the total absence of fear. True fearlessness is the deep internal acceptance that absolute disaster might strike. It is the peace of mind that comes from knowing, objectively, that if the worst happens, you have the capacity to survive, repair the damage, and rebuild. Unshakable confidence cannot be faked. It is built entirely on the physical proof of your own internal actions. You earn it by knowing the objective facts of your life, mapping out the worst-case scenarios, and ditching the flimsy facade of external tricks. To get there, you need a starting line. Forget about next week or tomorrow. Choose one tiny, uncompromising commitment you can make to yourself, and keep it, starting today. The journey out of anxiety and into genuine power doesn't start when you achieve a massive public victory. It begins the exact moment you keep your first private promise to yourself.